Donny thought he was doing the smart thing. After years of planning, he was ready to take control of his taxes in retirement, with a bold Roth conversion strategy that on paper looked like a no-brainer. But just weeks before pulling the trigger, we uncovered a single detail buried deep in the rules that was about to lock up his money and nearly derail his retirement plans. We're talking about thousands in unexpected costs, spiking Medicare premiums, and a retirement budget suddenly stretched thin. And here's the thing, Donny's not alone. This is one of the most common and most expensive missteps I see. So in today's video, I'm walking you through what Donny missed and how you can avoid the same trap. But first, I'm John Norberg, Certified Financial Planner, and this is the Financial Prof series. Over the past 7 years, I've had the privilege of working with hundreds of pre-retirees and retirees. And if there's one theme that shows up again and again, it's Roth conversions. I've seen them lower taxes, protect legacies, and create long-term confidence. But I've also seen them backfire badly. And it almost always comes down to one thing: not understanding the rules. What happened to Donny wasn't unusual. In fact, it was the perfect example of how simple advice can get complicated fast once real life gets involved. You see, the real pain here is not just taxes, it's the regret of doing something that sounded smart, only to find out too late that it wasn't. One small oversight can mean thousands in surprise costs, higher Medicare premiums, or even early withdrawal penalties. And once it's done, it's hard, if not impossible, to unwind. By understanding these rules before you convert, you can protect your retirement income, lower future taxes, and feel confident you're not making an irreversible mistake. So in this video, we're going to walk through the Roth conversion rule that nearly cost him everything and explain the different forms this rule takes, so you can spot it, plan for it, and avoid it entirely. Now here's the thing, Donny's plan wasn't reckless. In fact, on paper, it looked like something that you'd see right out of a textbook. But there was one detail that, again, hidden in plain sight, changed everything. And it's something I've seen overlooked so many times that I needed to make this video about it. So let's break down exactly what went wrong, why it happens more often than you'd think, and how you can make sure you're not walking into the same trap. So what exactly went wrong in Donny's plan? It all comes down to a single phrase that sounds simple, but in actuality is anything but: the 5-year rule. The issue is, there's not just one rule, there are actually 4 separate versions, and each one has its own timer, its own trigger, and its own tax consequences. And in Donny's case, if he had gone ahead and tripped this rule, it could have cost him enough to potentially outweigh any benefit from his planned Roth conversion. So here's how these 4 different rules actually break down. First, you've got the Roth contribution rule. If you've ever put money into a Roth IRA, your contributions themselves can be pulled anytime without issue. But if you want to withdraw the earnings tax-free, the clock starts on January 1 of the year you made your very first Roth contribution. You need to wait 5 full tax years and be at least 59.5 to avoid taxes on those earnings. Luckily, when you're making withdrawals from a Roth IRA, the IRS considers the withdrawals to be coming from contributions first, then conversions, and then earnings on a first-in, first-out basis. So when you're making withdrawals, your oldest contributions or conversions are going to come out first, and then everything else sequentially. So for example, let's say Donny made his first Roth IRA contribution in 2022. Even if he turns 59.5 here in 2025, he can't withdraw earnings tax-free until January 1st of 2027, the 5th year after that first contribution. If he pulls earnings out in 2025, even though he's the right age, he could owe the IRS because that 5-year clock hasn't finished ticking. All right, next we've got the designated Roth account rule. Now, a designated Roth account typically just refers to a Roth 401k, 403b, etc. Essentially, a Roth account you have through your employer plan at work. If you have a Roth 401k or similar, then it's the same deal. It has its own 5-year clock which applies to that account. It's a brand new timer. Now, another important piece of this puzzle is that unlike a Roth IRA, any withdrawal from a designated Roth account is considered to be a mix of both contributions and earnings, which could trigger taxes on the earnings portion and a 10% penalty if you're under the age of 59.5. All right, and then we've got Roth to Roth rollovers. So, if you roll a Roth IRA into another Roth IRA, your original, which is to say the oldest 5-year clock, stays intact. But if you roll a Roth 401k into a Roth IRA, the Roth IRA's clock now applies. Even if the Roth 401k was open for a decade or more, and when rolling from one Roth 401k to another, the older account generally determines the holding period. It's all about which account's clock controls the timeline, and if you get it wrong, you could face taxes or penalties you didn't expect. All right, now last but not least, we've got the Roth conversion rule. Now this is where Donny actually got tripped up. Every time you convert money from a traditional IRA into a Roth, that conversion starts its own 5-year clock. It doesn't matter if you've had a Roth for 10, 15, 20 years, each conversion has its own waiting period. So here's how it works. If you withdraw converted funds before age 59 and a half, you'll generally owe a 10% penalty on the amount you converted, specifically any pre-tax dollars, not just the earnings. Now, once you're over 59 and a half, you can access those converted funds without that early withdrawal penalty. But, and this is key, if it hasn't been at least 5 years since that Roth conversion was made, you could still owe income taxes on the earnings portion of that withdrawal. And that would be the case no matter how old you're lucky enough to be. So let's say, for example, Donny went ahead with his plan, which in his case was to convert $100,000 into Roth, and then liquidated that amount 3 years later to fund a large expense. Hopefully for something fun like an RV, but let's just say he had some unexpected medical expenses and needed significant funding. And let's just say the Roth had grown in that time to $130,000, so $30,000 of growth. If we needed a large sum to pay for something, that tax-free pile of money would make a great option, wouldn't it? Not so fast. If Donny liquidated the account, he'd owe taxes on that $30,000 of growth. And if he were in the 24% tax bracket at the time, he'd now be on the hook for $7,200. And that's before we get to state tax, net investment income tax, or IRMA, depending on his state of residence at the time. He could easily be on the hook for over $10,000 in unexpected expense once you factor those additional pieces in, when that would be the last thing he needed when he's already worrying about his health care. What would seem like a smart move would suddenly become a huge worry to add to a growing list. Now, when we started discussing this factor, I remember Donny looked at the screen with some concern, and I could see he was starting to have second thoughts about this whole big lump sum Roth conversion strategy. So why does this rule cause so much damage? Because it's confusing and dangerously easy to overlook, especially given its different variations. Donny was planning a conversion strategy of a few large lump sums over the next couple of years to lower his future taxes and reduce his RMDs. But each one of these conversions would have started a new 5-year clock. And as we saw, if he needed to touch that money before the timer expired, he could have triggered significant costs he didn't budget for. And worse, the conversions would have spiked his reported income for the year. That would have had him likely in a higher Medicare bracket, meaning he'd pay thousands more in income-related Medicare adjustment surcharges, IRMA, at a time when he already felt like his health care was eating into his retirement. So you see, it's not just about tax planning, it's about peace of mind. And Donny almost lost both. So when people talk about Roth conversions as a smart tax play, they're not wrong. But that smart doesn't mean simple. You see, without understanding how the 5-year and all of its variational rules work, you could be converting your way into a trap. So next I'm going to show you how Donny could have avoided all this with a few simple shifts, and how you can too. But before we jump in, take a second to think about your own plan. Are your Roth conversions coordinated with your withdrawal strategy? Do you know which 5-year clock applies to your funds and whether you're actually in the clear? And what about everything else? If you're not 100% sure, don't worry, you're not alone. This is the kind of stuff that most people don't even realize they should be asking. That's why we built the Quill and Ledger planning process to help spot potential pitfalls, organize your timelines, and make sure that your strategy is airtight. You can find the link to book a call below, and if you're serious about making the most of your retirement, it's a great place to start. All right, so now luckily for Donny, he decided to get a second set of eyes on his plan before he hit go on his Roth conversions. You see, he was looking to game out a coordinated execution plan, one that considered not just the tax bill today, but the taxes, income spikes, and Medicare consequences down the road, and how everything fit together in the overall financial plan. He didn't need to ditch the Roth conversion part altogether. He just needed a smarter, more deliberate approach that aligned with the timing of his conversions and with the timing of his needs. And that's where things started to look very different. So first, we recommended that Donny could slow down and stage his conversions over a longer period of time. Instead of front-loading everything in a couple of short years, he could have spread those conversions across, say, a 6 to 8 year window. That would do a few things. It would help to reduce his annual income spikes, keep him under key IRMA thresholds, and begin a rolling series of 5-year clocks, each one easier to track, manage, and work around if he needed to ever tap those funds. Second, we mapped out his spending needs against each clock. Donny didn't plan on touching his Roth funds for at least a decade, but if he needed liquidity earlier, we'd want those dollars coming from contributions first, not conversions, and certainly not the earnings that hadn't met the 5-year mark. That means matching the type of Roth dollars to the timing of the spending. Third, we'd want to anchor every step in the broader picture: his RMD strategy, his legacy goals, and his healthcare costs. For Donny, the real value of the Roth wasn't just tax reduction, it was predictability, peace of mind, knowing that his withdrawals wouldn't trigger unpleasant surprises every time he sat down with his CPA or opened a Medicare bill. No guesswork, no assumptions, and no hidden gotchas, just clarity and peace of mind. So here's the big takeaway. Roth conversions can be one of the most powerful tools in retirement planning. They let you tell the IRS not only when, but how and how much you're going to pay in taxes. But they only work when you understand how the rules actually function in the real world. And for Donny, the danger wasn't the conversion itself, it was in assuming that a good idea didn't come with fine print. Now, the 5-year rule is not just one rule, it's a framework that affects how and when you can access your money without penalties, taxes, or ripple effects like IRMA or unexpected quarterly tax payments due. And when you layer that on top of conversions, rollovers, Medicare planning, and legacy goals, it stops being a simple tax move and becomes a strategy that has to be coordinated across your whole retirement plan. Donny's mistake was thinking about the Roth in isolation, but once we zoomed out, once we saw how it impacted the rest of his income picture, the path forward became a lot clearer and a lot safer. So if you're thinking about making Roth conversions part of your retirement strategy, or already have, it's worth making sure the timing, order, and rules are working in your favor and not against you. Because like we saw with Donny, a solid plan can quickly become a costly one if you're not paying attention to the fine print. And just as important, this is how you avoid the fear that stops so many people from taking action in the first place. The fear of not acting simply because you don't know what you don't know and don't have an actual plan. So now that you understand more about how the Roth conversion 5-year rules work, it's my hope that you can use this information to make a more intentional decision about how you allocate your money in the years leading up to and through your retirement. Now, if you want to learn more about how we help our clients navigate those complex financial and psychological decisions that surround their retirement planning, head to the link below to schedule a call, and we'll walk through your specific numbers, goals, and timelines to help you avoid surprises and retire with confidence. Thanks for watching, and in the meantime, I'll see you out there.